Welcome back to the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Phil Gerdes, an entrepreneur, coach, and leader whose mission is to help others step into their highest influence and service-driven leadership. Now, Phil is a serial entrepreneur. He leads a high-performing real estate team in Annapolis, and more recently founded the coaching program Shift Immersive Coaching. Now, what I love most about Phil is his deep commitment to purpose and meaningful contribution beyond the bottom line. And so I know our conversation today on leadership, faith, purpose, and service will challenge you, inspire you, and leave you with practical ways to lead in full alignment of who you are called to be in this world. And without further ado, it all starts now. I'm Kara, and welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. I believe that all of us possess unique gifts and talents that allow us to serve the world and our own growth in the highest possible way. Our lives are an expression of our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And here, we will explore businesses, thought leaders, and topics designed to inspire, helping propel your own growth so you can live your best and most purposeful life. Welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. On today's episode, we have Phil Gerdes, real estate veteran, serial entrepreneur, and founder of Shift Immersive Coaching.
Yes.
So today we're talking leadership and the shifts. See what I did there?
I see what you did.
To growth and growing into your next evolution in business. So I wanted to share with you as we get started. So welcome, Phil.
Thank you.
So I wanted to share before we get started. Sometimes I will kind of get quiet and just ask for some words that kind of inspire the episode. And so the 3 words I wrote down at the top here are faith, purpose, and service.
I like them.
So that's going to shape our conversation today.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that you didn't share that with me in advance.
Yeah, no, I did not.
Yeah.
So with that as our framework, I wanted to see, thinking back to your first business and what was the driving force for you then versus how that's evolved to the driving force in what you're doing today.
Yeah.
Well, take us back.
It's a long time ago because my first business, I was 17, like my first actual real business where I wasn't mowing lawns or washing cars. It was an online advertising company. I think my drive was that I was completely lost. And I just didn't know what I was going to do. But I was relatively smart, so I taught myself to code, and then I built this website, and then I went door to door to businesses to get grown adults to advertise on my website called pgadvertisingonline.com.
No,
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was I was a 17-year-old kid, and I'm just doing my best to convince grown-ups to advertise on this site. And it was crazy because number one, that was clearly a 17-year-old picking the name of that website. Terrible name. But number two, I really remember just being completely fearless. Like I didn't care if people said no. I just went to one company after the other. And I started by calling, and then I set up appointments, and then like it didn't matter to me what the result was. It mattered that I was out there doing it, and I knew that if I did it enough, then I'd get the clients. Fast forward to like the businesses I have now. Well, I'm not completely lost anymore, but it's really neat. I've never thought about this, but it's very clear. Then I was lost. Now I have absolutely clear direction. So I think the difference is I was trying to figure out where I was going, and now I know exactly where I want to land. So,
do you think that that's something that happens just with age naturally for people? Or do you think that at 17, 18, you can start there? Or like, what would be your advice for that person?
Yeah, I think it's funny you said this. You asked this because I was just asked this by oddly enough, last night. We bought my son a new vehicle from Texas, and it got delivered. And the driver was a young guy in his early 20s. And when he delivered it, I wasn't there. I wasn't back from the event I was at yesterday. So he calls me and tells me everything's done. And he passed it over to my son. My son's super happy. I'm like, great, thank you. And he says, hey, I looked you up. You think that maybe I could reach out to you? I'd love some advice on like what to do with my life. And he told me a little bit more about him. So I think it can happen anytime. I do also think that there was a time in my life where I thought it was something that happened with age, like this realization and clarity happened with age. And I've come to find that just talking with people and coaching people, it absolutely does not come with age. I think more so it comes with experience. And I don't think age equals wisdom. I think there tends to be some confusion there. I think experience can create wisdom depending on how you choose to receive each individual experience and then what you do with it. So yeah, I think it can happen at 17. I think it can happen at 90. I don't really care how old I am. I care more about where I'm going and if I really want to be there. Because if I don't, like, if I really want to be there, I'm going to do the work, like even the hard stuff. And if I don't really want to be there, I'm going to find reasons, also known as excuses, as to why I'm not going to do the work. But I'm going to present myself as someone doing the work. But I know the truth. And it's not that I'm a bad person. It's just that I don't really want that. So I think when you find your purpose, everything changes, and that can happen at any point in time in your life.
Well, and that should give hope to a lot of our listeners too. So
Yeah.
no matter where you are,
Yeah.
you can find that.
Yeah.
And so what does purpose mean to you now then?
Wow. You ask good questions. And it's so early.
We're just getting started.
Yeah. Listening and intention. I'm just a firm believer and I know God, and I just really believe that I am very aware of why I am on earth personally, not why humanity is here, but why Phil is here. And because of that, I have a choice to make. It was funny. I was talking about this at the event yesterday. I have a choice to make on whether or not I'm going to honor that decision or that knowing, that clarity, or if I'm not. But I believe, everyone has their own, I believe that one day I'm going to be face to face with God, and he's going to be like, so I told you why you were here, and you told me you understood. How come you didn't do it? And I just don't want him to ask me that question. So I just would rather be faithful with intention on achieving the purpose that he put me here to achieve.
You know, it's interesting because I think that a lot of what you're talking about too is like that why driving you and like how that becomes the mission.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of coaches that talk about, oh, like know your why and la la la, right? And it's almost like, nah, wah wah, like I don't want to hear that. How do you help though people? But that is at the core of it. It's just that there's different ways to teach that and to help get to the core. So where would you start with someone?
Yeah, I think the concept of having a why has been so played out because it's shifted from intentional purpose to like event driven rah-rah. And I think it's so pointless. You know, I go to an event, what's your why? Write it down, jump up and down, cheer. Well, when I leave that event, you realize I got to step back into life, and life doesn't care what I wrote on that paper. So the question for me is, what are you doing it for? Not what is your why? Because I think a why tends to equate to what is your dream. And I just firmly believe there's a reason why we dream while we're asleep. And we don't dream awake. We work when we're awake. So what are you doing it for? It goes back to what you said. What's your purpose? So I don't believe that a why is a purpose. I think a purpose is given to you through either God or through experience or events that you go through, like events and things that happen in your life. So yeah, it's for me, it's not so much what's your rah-rah why. It's like, what is your purpose? What are you doing this for? And then can we reconcile with whether or not you're willing to do the work that it will take to get you there? Because if not, then you might as well keep writing down your rah-rah why. And then everyone's going to cheer for you and say, that's a great why. And then you're going to get out of the event. And while no one's looking, you're not going to do anything. But I don't even have that as a choice because I know clearly what my purpose is. I know it was delivered to me by God, and I refuse to go to heaven and be put in this position where I have to say, I just didn't feel like it, man. I was tired that day. It's just not, I don't think that answer is going to be good enough. So yeah, that's my long answer to your short question. And
then for those you're coaching though, how do you get them to that?
Well, break down who they are. I think this is a big one, right? So it's like I think work in this industry where the shiny penny syndrome is so prevalent. I recently had someone say, hey, so-and-so has this thing. I don't even know what it is. Still, I haven't researched what it was. So-and-so has this thing. Next text, I'm meeting with them. Next text, I signed up. Same person said, I need to stop just doing things. I need to take my time, pump the brakes, see how it works in my business. I need to really delve into what I need in my business versus what I'd like in my business or what seems nice in my business. There's so much shiny penny syndrome out there. And what's the point? Like, let's just do the things that get us what we want and where we want in life. And then everything changes. Like, you start looking around saying, I don't really need that. It's sort of like buying a new car. Do you really need it? I don't need a new car. I will. It's weird because I've had so many cars.
You saying that seams very bizarre to me.
Exactly. But then this goes to like, this can happen anytime because I will never purchase a new vehicle again for myself. I'm done. Like, this is my last car I will ever own. Because I just don't care about that. You know, I want to go to the south of France and create memories as opposed to say I drive an X vehicle. And that doesn't mean that having a particular car is wrong. It just means that, like, I feel like most people get to a point where they start saying, like, I'm not going to take, imagine this, you're 80 years old, however old, you can't drive anymore. What's that car doing for you? It's now sitting in your driveway. But I can play back all the experience I had. I can talk about the vacations we went on and the times we did this and that and the stories. And that's what I want. I want more of those.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think that's an evolution of growth too. And as you know, probably an age, thing where you start to realize like what matters now, as well.
Because I wouldn't have thought that in my 20s.
I wouldn't have thought that for you 5 years ago.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's true. Yeah.
But, and it's interesting you talk about, the shiny penny too, because I do think there's so many, and especially at conferences, a lot of people use NLP and they're like constantly driving this, you need this to be successful. You need this. And so there's a constant turning outwards towards the things that you need to be successful versus finding success internally.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of the work that you're doing with Shift is about too. It's about finding that internal shift. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So an example would be yesterday at the event. This was something that I could have clearly taken the direction of, let me just push coaching. And then I don't want to say last minute, the day of the event yesterday, I decided, well, I'm going to change some things. I redid slides and I just put my website at the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. No QR codes, no signups, no let me capture your information. And then during the presentation, I said, look, yes, I have a coaching company. The site's on the bottom right. If you're interested, go there. But everyone grab a pen and paper. And then I gave everyone my personal cell phone number at the event. I said, look, the bottom line is I know I'm on earth. I'm here to serve. So because of that, if you need me, this isn't about coaching. It's about service. So let's just serve each other. How can I serve you? Not give to you. Because Kara, I think there's a big difference between give and service. Like when we give something, we tend on expecting something in return. Like if I'm at the register and I give you $100 and it costs 80, you owe me $20 back, right? It's just always this give and take. That's why we say give and take. But the receipt for service is the act of service. You allowing me to serve you is what I'm serving for. Like that's the purpose in it. So I don't actually think I even answered your question, but I think
that's okay. It was good. No, but it was good. It actually reminds me of this kind of like code that I'll sometimes use when giving to others. And that's like this code of 100-fold. So like the idea is that when you're doing something, even when you're spending money, when you're doing whatever you're doing, that it is with the energy of blessing those 100 times over.
Yeah.
And then that way, like inevitably that comes back, but that's not the energy of why you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that speaks to like kind of that heart of the service.
And I would say that, and this may be an out of the box perception or perspective, but you said inevitably it comes back. And I would say that the reason it comes back is because you put yourself at the mercy of service. So that means you are worthy of service as well. So you being a good steward and you serving others puts you right on my level to where now I connect with you and I want to serve you. So you get that opportunity to be served because you take the opportunity to serve. So, yeah.
Now, going back to the question.
Yes, give it again.
Going back to the question about the internal shift that has to happen for, I think, business owners, and like, how would you describe that internal shift for yourself? Have you? I mean, I think you've talked about that it's kind of something that's evolved over time.
Yeah.
But how do you? Because what you're doing with Shift coaching is looking at what are the internal shifts that have to happen in order to experience.
Yeah. So when someone starts coaching with us, one of the first things we do is break the person down, right? It's like, let's figure out who you are, why we're doing this, what is all this for in the first place? Let's figure out who you actually deserve to be working with, not just who your pipe dream client is. And that's where we make an internal shift, because a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, that aren't like uber successful, one of the reasons they're not is because they self-sabotage. Like, they get to this point where they just don't believe they're worthy yet. Like, that's just more than me. Like, I don't belong in that room. Like, I'll hang out over here in the lobby, but these people are bigger and better and stronger and faster. And example, people say, well, Phil, I wanted to call you, but I know you're busy. Cool. I'm busy with the people that called me. So what made you think that you were any less important than them? So when it comes to that internal shift, a lot of it, in my opinion, has to do with confidence. And I always say confidence is earned by doing the thing. And that provides us with a paradox, because if confidence is what I need, but I truly only gain confidence by doing the work, then you have to commit to a system or a framework to do the work without confidence and be totally okay with that. And deliver at your absolute best, knowing that you are still a bit unsure. And then one day you're going to turn around and you haven't created a habit. You haven't created this thing that you do every now and then. It's just who you are. You are just simply a confident person in that. And I would argue that pretty much all of us have a thing, that we can say right now, yeah, I'm very confident when I do this. Well, how do we take that confidence and transfer it into your ability to do something else? So that's one of the first shifts we're looking to make. Like, how do we transfer confidence from the thing that you are very comfortable with to the thing that you want to build, that you want to create? And that, to me, is by putting systems together that are so darn simple that anyone could do it. All they have to do is commit to certain aspects of what the system requires. So yeah, that's how we start to make the shift.
Very cool.
Again, I don't think that's an age thing. I think that's just a decision.
Yeah.
You know, sort of like going to the gym. Like, a lot of people drive to the gym. A lot of people drive home right after, never go in. Like, no, you have to go in and do the work. And then even when you're doing the work, you have to do, every rep has to be your best rep. You know, one of the things my trainer has done with me is just tell me, slow down. Like, hey, I see you lifted this. That's really great. How many did you do? You did all of them? Cool. Well, lift that a lot slower, because that's a lot of weight. You shouldn't have been able to do all of them. That means you're doing it wrong. You're doing it to get through it. You're not doing it to receive what it has to give you. And that's a great way of looking at life.
I love that.
Yeah, just be really present in that singular thing. It wants to bless you, but you're just driving so darn fast. You're missing the signs. Like, you don't even have time to read them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's a really good lesson, is presence.
Yeah.
Presence for others, but also really presence for ourselves.
Yeah.
More than anything else, you know, because it starts there.
Agreed.
I know that you coach a lot of businesses too, and mentor a lot of businesses out, both within real estate, but also outside.
Yeah.
And so when you look at patterns in leadership, what would you say are some of the patterns that you see in some of the most successful leaders?
Excuseless. There are no such things. There is no such thing as a reason something didn't happen. There is just an excuse for the reason you didn't do it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you can't say, I want to be successful, but I'm not going to go there because of X, or I'm not going to do this because of Y. You can say, I need to recharge, and I'm going to take time for myself and recharge. But recharge doesn't happen because you don't feel like doing something. Recharge happens because you've done something that you didn't feel like doing so much. You got so uncomfortable. You just did the work that now you're listening to your body, your mind, your soul, and it's telling you, hey, you need to step away a little bit and take care of yourself too. And then great leaders do that, but they earn that right to do that. I think that people that pretend lead, tend to say, I did enough. People that lead never think they did enough. It's different. I was in Charlotte, challenged. I shared this quote with them. I said, you'll never beat me on a treadmill because one of two things will happen. You're going to get off or I'm going to die. And they said, well, there's no treadmill here. Prove it. I said, well, let's do push-ups. A true story. So there's about 150 people in this room. And Kara, you know me, like you're not going to challenge me. So I said, all right, let's do push-ups. No one expected me to say, all right. So here was the issue. As soon as I said, all right, everyone started looking around. Now you got all these people in the room. No one wants to step up on the word that they just gave because everyone was yelling before I said, all right. And then they all start looking at one guy and they're like, hey, Trey, you do it, Trey. So I said, wow, look what's happening. You are so willing to talk when you don't have to put up. And you're even more willing to put someone else in the line of fire as opposed to you just stepping up. And then Trey stood up. I didn't realize it, but Trey was about 6'5".
There's a reason they picked Trey.
There's a reason they picked Trey.
They knew.
So here's the issue. If God puts a mountain in front of you, your choice is to stay in the valley or climb the mountain. So I decided I'm going to climb the mountain. So I said, Trey, here's what we'll do. Come up here. He came up. I said, you want to do this? He said, yeah. I said, you're going to win? He said, yeah. I said, great. You do push-ups. I'll do one-arm push-ups with my left hand. Now, I haven't done one-arm push-ups in 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So I looked at Trey as a mountain. So we start going, and we start going, and we start going. And then Trey won. After I did 35 one-arm push-ups.
Wow.
And my body literally would not push. There's a video. I just collapsed. The best part about that was not that Trey won, was not that I lost, was that Trey came up to me and said, hey, what they didn't tell you is I'm a D1 athlete, an Olympic trials attendee or whatever. And then he says, and I could have never done what you just did. I'm 44. He's, I think, 26.
Wow.
The difference was not I'm stronger, he's stronger. It was just that I set my mind to something. I will not make an excuse. I will die on the treadmill. That's what it boils down to. There was no function. I actually had to stop and take a break from the event right after that because I couldn't function. Like that was it. I put 100% of myself into that. Well, why aren't we doing that for everything? Like, why isn't that our default? Just start, end, middle, everything. Like give all that you have, whether it's for yourself, for someone else, for the purpose and intention. And then, like, I don't care if I win or lose. You can't tell me I didn't give everything. You can't tell me I didn't do my absolute best. So that's a perspective I think more people should take, because imagine how great industry would be, life would be, the world would be if we just said, I'm going to put, when I'm doing it, doesn't have to be all the time, but when I'm in, I am solely in. So,
and I think sometimes somebody could be listening to that and say, oh my gosh, like I'm never going to be like that. And, you know, but I think what you just said was when you decide to be in, you don't have to be in all the time.
No.
But like when you make the decision that you're going to be in, just be in.
Honor it.
And then make the decision to not be in.
Yes.
When you need to recharge.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's not like you may be a little superhuman and in it more than others, but I'm just saying for the normal
have to be.
But you don't have to be. I think that's the lesson.
Yeah.
And that can be whether you're building a business as an entrepreneur. That can be whether you're working in a corporate role, but like be where your feet are.
It can be if you're at your kid's volleyball game and you're like this. Good job. And then you're back here. Yeah. Well, you're not in. You're not honest. You're not present. And your kid knows it. You know, we were talking about Emma playing volleyball. When Ethan goes to the games, Ethan's cell phone, we take it and it goes down face down on the bleachers. And he can get it back when the game's over. Why? Because when Ethan's at the game, Emma looks at Ethan in between every set. Every single one. And that's her looking at her big brother. It's just like, you're my favorite person. You're the person that I want to be like. Well, great. So then it's not just making her feel better to know that Ethan's looking too. It's saying that if you're my favorite person, well, then I want to emulate you. And one of the things that Ethan is teaching her to emulate is being hyper present. And that just happens by removing the distraction. Just get rid of it, put it face down. You don't even want to see it light up when you get an alert. Just I keep it on DND. Not good enough. Just put it down. So
I love that.
Yeah.
What are some other things that you've done with your kids to help model presence?
We talk about everything. Like they know, especially Emma, goodness, she knows where I am, when I am, how I am, all of it. This week I was in Houston, Texas. And then, Monday I had meetings. Mm-hmm. After the meetings, I fly to Houston. I think today is what day? Friday? Forgive me. Mm-hmm. Tuesday, I flew to Texas. Wednesday, I had an event all day, 6 hours standing, delivering for nonstop. And then I had a dinner, and then I went to sleep, and then I had a flight at 6 a.m. So I was at the airport at 4. And then I got home for a few hours, and then I was set to go to another event. Emma knew all of it. She was tracking my calendar. Dad, you're supposed to be here now, there now. So just showing, it's cute, but it also shows that she understands the importance of being where you say you're going to be, and having a proper calendar and being organized. And we literally talk about all of it, business decisions, experiences. I want them to be a part of it because I never had that. Mm-hmm. I think you're probably very much the same. Like, I just don't want my kids to start where I started. Whether where I started is perceived as good or bad, I don't care. But if I started at 7, they should at least start at 8. Like, there's just no reason in the world for them to start where I started, because then what was the point? They didn't ask to be here. So since I decided they're going to be here, my wife decided they're going to be here, God decided they're going to be here, at least all 3 of us should do everything we can to make their here much better than ours was, whether ours was good or bad.
Yeah.
So
I love that. And I think, to your point, just modeling that for them, helping them see. I mean, a lot of times they'll be on negotiations with me, and I'll ask them, because I'll tell the person that I've got my kids in the back seat, but I want them to hear some of the things, like how to communicate, because communication is so important, and in some ways, sometimes a lost skill. Yeah. So it's important to, model that for them.
Yeah. I'll share a really quick story. Ethan and one of his friends came to move some stuff at the office. I then told them, hey, I'm going to give you guys $100. You're going to split it. I need this moved around. I do need you to come back on Friday and move just this one thing back. What they heard was, you're going to get an extra $100 on Friday. I never said that, never implied it. They just decided it. They came and did it. And I said, okay, now that you guys are done, before you leave, I need you to walk to the bullpen. So there's agents in the bullpen. I get everyone's attention. I said, now guys, what I want you to understand is one of the most important skills you will ever have is communication and public speaking. And public speaking is not from a stage. Public speaking is your ability to talk with another person, look at them in the eyes, have a great conversation, et cetera, listen, all of it. So tell everyone what you did and why it was important today. Boom. They did it in front of everyone. They explained, Ethan and his friend. I said, great, here's the next lesson for you. When you make a deal, make sure you read the fine print. Don't assume anything. Always understand that you have to know the deal that you're walking into, and make sure everyone's on the same page. Great, got it. And I said, the third lesson is probably the most important lesson. Don't just be a person. Always be a good person. There was a miscommunication and what you guys were going to get. If this was the second time it happened, I'd let you stay where you are. But it's the first time, and I understand that you put your heart into it and you did your work. So here's an extra $100. I said, be a good person. So these are ways that, yes, we can model it, and then we can invite them into it, and just teach them the lessons that, again, I just wish that, like, man, if I could have learned it at 16, 17, right, it would have been different. Yeah. So not that it's bad, it's just would have been better.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You would have had an earlier
start. Yeah. Right?
So, so switching gears a little bit, although we have talked about this, but I'd love to understand your, from your perspective, how do faith and God play into your business? And how do you see that intersection of faith and business?
Yeah. So working it from 2 different perspectives. From the real estate side, right? It's so hard, in my opinion, to include your faith and be very open about it, because there's rules. I mean, it's not about whether I want to or not. There's just rules that, and even laws that say I can't do this. I can't talk about this. I cannot express this to a person. In coaching, we are a faith-based coaching company, and there is no hiding it. We have, though, I will tell you, people of all different faiths. right? It's not, you don't have to just be Christian. You can be Muslim, you can be Buddhist, you can just be. What I know is that my job is not to force someone to believe in God. My job is to exemplify what God wants me to exemplify and invite people to be a part of it. There's a difference. But I think that if you are not a believer and you are part of my world, then all I'm doing is giving you an opportunity to decide if maybe you want to learn more. And when you ask, if you ask, then I'll be there to steward you and to support you and share in any way that I can. Because a lot of people don't know, but I used to be atheist. And one of the things for me was when someone came and told me what to believe, it just proved my point to myself even more. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't want that. I wanted to believe what I wanted to believe for the reasons I wanted to believe them. And by being in that position, it allows me now to talk to people that also don't believe, or like, because I didn't, and respect their position very differently. Not from a, yeah, I get it, but from a literal, no, I get it. I was where you are, and here's what happened to me. From coaching, definitely faith-based. When it comes to including your faith in your business, that neat book called the Bible, I just am a firm believer that every life and business lesson you ever need are sitting in that book. There's a verse in Colossians, and I don't have it off the, give me a sec. I want to read it to you. It's so darn beautiful. What's really cool about this verse is it speaks literally to how I build business. It is my absolute favorite.
Well, and I think what, it's interesting because I know you said, well, you can't kind of have that. It's harder to have in real estate. Of course, we are restricted in what we can say or right from a steering perspective about certain communities or whatever.
Yes.
But, it's interesting. Like I know for me, I mean, I pray over my clients, I pray
all the time.
So it's not, it's very, by just working with me, they're going to get extra prayers.
Yeah.
And they don't know it necessarily,
And that's okay.
And that's okay,
yeah.
right? Because it's that idea of knowing that you're here for a larger purpose.
Yep.
And knowing that you're here to serve in whatever way that he will allow me to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Whatever ways present themselves. Being aware of it and then being bold enough. Because I think it does say something about you, me, and others that feel and believe the way we do, that there is a sense of like, you have to be bold enough to share how you feel. And especially in today's world where it can be so seen as a negative. But the verse is Colossians chapter 3, verse 23 and 24. It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord. So the Bible is just riddled with lessons like that. Like, okay, so I don't care if I'm on the swim team swimming or if I'm building an empire. Work at it as if you were working for the Lord. Jeez Louise. Well, now, if God were literally sitting right here, what would he think about our conversation? Now have the conversation. And then remember, God's literally sitting right here listening to our conversation.
Yeah.
So, and that's just what I truly believe. I think it's important to make the distinction, though, that doesn't mean that I am anywhere close to perfect. I am so riddled with sin, it's insane. But goodness, it doesn't change the fact that I want to be good. I want this. I'm never going to be without sin. It doesn't mean that I submit to sin.
Just this morning, I was reading this like passage in a study, and it was about Joseph and how his brothers had, sent him away.
Story. I did a whole training on this story.
Did you really?
Oh my goodness, I love this story.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, so, for those that know the story, right? He gets sent away. Then he was a servant for and gets the favor of them. Then he, rises up. Then they accuse him of being too close to the wife, so they send him to jail. Then somebody sees the good in him, so he then rises up and they put him in control of the prison. Then he starts working with the Pharaoh and has a vision of that they need to store grain because for the famine, right?
Yep.
And it's all these things that, that God uses us to do good in all things. And so when he ends up basically saving Egypt from famine
Yeah.
and meets his brothers, and he says, it's okay because God used me for a different purpose, and blessed the road that led him to where he was. So anyway, it was just, again, that idea that no matter where we are put or what circumstances get thrown at us, there's always a choice in every moment to see the good that it can become.
Yep.
And that we are always being used for good. We just have to be aware enough to recognize that and see the good in every situation. So how did you use it in your training him?
I mean, I love the darn story, and you nailed it. Like, Joseph experienced so much strife in his life, and not just from the point where his brothers sold him, but even before that, because his brothers really didn't like him because of the favor that their father put on Joseph, and he never made Joseph work the fields or anything like that. So that in itself created angst. But one of the things that I really love about the experience of Joseph is, if you look at this story throughout his life, he did question a lot. He didn't think it was fair often. And every time something was going right and he started understanding it and then it went wrong, he did question God. But what's super cool is when his brothers came to Egypt, and Joseph was second to the Pharaoh, right? That's insane. That is a crazy achievement. But he didn't actually first say, okay, I forgive you. He said, get the rest of our family, bring everyone here. And then he blessed all of them. He then showed that he forgave everyone. The kicker for me is, like, this is like a bow and arrow. Like, we want to shoot an arrow far. What must we do? We must pull the rope back far. All that strife that happened in Joseph's life was God pulling his arrow back. And, well, I want to be, like, in charge of the prisons. Well, God could have just done this. But God had second to the Pharaoh in Joseph's plans. So he had to pull back. He had to put Joseph through it. And, well, why? Why doesn't God just place him there? Because then he wouldn't be able to appreciate being there. He would have had all the pain and the anger in his heart. Imagine if Joseph would have been sold into slavery by his own brothers, and then the next day woke up second to the Pharaoh. Who would have been in charge then? Joseph had to learn lessons and go through things and appreciate and accept to become the person God wanted him to be, to then give him the opportunity to bless other people, put him in a position of blessing.
Yeah.
So when we're getting pulled back, it's important to understand it's because God wants to release us so we can fly really, really far.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. And I think that it also gives us, as you said, so much more empathy for another person's, because then there's less judgment, in terms of when you meet somebody, wherever they are, you can just be presence. You can have more presence with them to understand that we all come from different places and perspectives.
And we're not the main character in other people's lives. Yeah. I guess I feel like we as people have got so like you should do it like I do it. Why? Why? That's how you do it. Like I share with our coaching clients. Our job is to be the best supporting cast members. Like, we should be winning awards for best supporting cast member. Nothing we do will make us the main character in anyone else's life other than our own. So for others, support. That is it. So how can I support in the best way possible? And it's funny that, like, with all the scheduling issues we ran across, that today is when we're shooting this, coming off the event that I was at yesterday. Yeah. Right. It's almost like it was planned. It's almost like there was intention.
Almost like it. Something like that. So that's pretty awesome. So last question. I know you've been traveling a lot, and you hold a very busy schedule, as we've talked about. Yeah. So what are the practices that you have to ground, to recharge? Like, what does that look like for you on a daily basis that helps you be able to pull back in order to go forward? Yeah.
I think I'm very aware of what I'm rooted in. And because I'm aware of what I'm rooted in, and it's taken time, it's like bamboo. It's taken time to grow to the point of, wow, I can see it now. That just gives me this natural ability to not feel overwhelmed as much as I might feel overwhelmed if I wasn't rooted with a strong foundation. Now, though, you're right, I'm running. Like, I'm in full run mode. It's full build mode with Shift. And it's going so darn well that I don't want to say no to things, but I'm making sure I say no to things. I'm making sure that if it doesn't fit the purpose and intention, don't just show up for the sake of it. And also, which is a really big one for me, I am absolutely ensuring that money is not the reason I'm accepting opportunity. It's just not it. If the intention is not to be of service, if the benefit is not to be of service, then I don't want to do it. It just doesn't line up with me. And then it's funny you asked, like, what am I doing? Because this morning I was thinking, well, it's about time to put that boat on the hard. And I don't know what I'm going to do this winter, because the boat is my place. It is my recharge. It is my find peace, because it's different. Yeah, I could go to Key West for vacation, but I could also just go on my boat in 10 minutes and be on the water, and I don't have to travel or anything like that. So now I'm actually thinking, like, this winter, and I do this every winter, I want something new. What is my next thing that will give me a feeling of peace that I can do in the cold weather that I don't enjoy? So I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I find for the winter season as my place of peace or my practice of peace. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this is not on the list of questions, but I'm curious because you're a water person.
Very much.
No mountains, water, mountain, beach, mountain.
Beach all day. Not even a question. Mountains are beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Like, I was in Oregon 2.5 weeks ago or so. I was just blown away. Like, to look at what some terrain looks like is amazing to me. But I am not picking a mountain over a beach. There's just no world.
It's so funny because people are either one or another, and I don't know what it is. But
I know what it is. It's the beach.
I'm a beach person too, so I know that. But
that's it for me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this has been super fun. I really appreciate your time. I know, as you mentioned, we've gone through a lot of scheduling to get here, but I do think it was perfectly planned for today.
I agree. Thank you.
And really appreciate your time. Any closing thoughts or how people can reach you? Best ways to.
I mean, I think. Well, you can reach me anywhere, right? Any social media platform.
We'll tag them.
Tag. It's just at Phil Gerdes. I keep it super simple. Yeah. The coaching is at Shift Immersive Coaching, but only on Instagram. Everywhere else is all at Phil Gerdes. And then I think as a closing thought, I would say that if people are like me, they watch a lot of podcasts like this. They listen to a lot of podcasts like this. They watch different videos and they say, man, that feels good. That seems good. That makes sense. It makes sense and feels good because we're in it and we're living it. I would encourage other people to find their feels good, makes sense, looks good. Like, 'cause it doesn't have to feel or look like you or me. It just has to work for them. So whatever it is, to find your space. But also ask for help. Don't be the person that says, well, not yet. I got to make it here before I ask someone. Most of the people that are winning want to help other people win. So just ask for help. They're not going to reach down and pull you up, but they will drop a ladder. But you got to say, hey, drop the ladder. Right. So, yeah.
I love that. And, I say a lot on the show, ask and it is given. And ask.
Just ask.
Right? Just ask. And, a lot of times, though, we ask and then we're looking for the answer to come in a particular way. Yeah. So you're waiting for it to come through the door and it's coming from the window behind you, right? So it's like ask and then be aware of how things show up for you. Yeah. Because they will.
They will. You have to be open and you have to keep your eyes like on the prize. You have to say, okay, I asked, so yeah, it's just like you said, it doesn't have to be the way I wanted it to show up. Yeah. But it's going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen for the yes, because sometimes you think, oh, this is perfect. This perfectly lines up. But if you ask the question, is this a yes? It may not be there. Right. Yeah. And so then it's understanding, gosh, this is another tangent, but then it's understanding what is fear holding you back and what's actually a hard no.
Yeah. And then also accepting that when you are pulled out of things, but you see it as failure, maybe you just needed to be pulled out of something. It wasn't actually failure. Maybe God said, I don't have another way of getting you to understand that this isn't for you. So I'm just going to make you fail at it because you just won't listen.
Right.
All right. So you asked me for something. I have attempted to give it to you, but you're doing it in the natural where all of this happens in the supernatural. So just listen, and be thankful. I know that even Shift Immersive Coaching, if something hadn't happened to me that I never thought would have happened, I would have never said, fine, I'm going to do this on my own. Right? It would have never been a thing. And in the time when it happened, I said, wow, why is this happening? But I also said, let me wait for an answer. And the answer came. So,
the pause.
Yeah, the pause. And it's like when you take a deep breath, so you breathe and then you pause and then you breathe out. The life is happening in the pause. That oxygen is working itself through your blood system, through your body in the pause. So just appreciate that life happens in the pause. So, yeah.
So good. Well, thank you so much.
This was a lot of fun. Thanks.
It was fun.
Appreciate it.
Loved being here with you today and would love to connect with you more over on Instagram. My handle is linked to the show notes, or you can just type in @Chaffin Donofrio. And I have something special for you as a free gift, my Dynamic Life Journal. This special book has the power to really help you live a soul-inspired life. Go to freegiftfromkara.com. Easy to remember, freegiftfromkara.com. Until next time, beautiful people, sending all my love.